All right. Hey, Mark chapter 5, and we're beginning in verse 21. Verse 21. Now remember, there's a couple of thematic questions that the Gospel of Mark just asks us almost in every single verse throughout the Gospel of Mark. Question number one is, who is Jesus? Over and over again, people ask that question, who is Jesus, after he has done something absolutely phenomenal? Who is this man? And it also answers the question, why should we follow him? Now, let me just do a real quick review. Who wrote the Gospel of Mark? Careful before you answer that. Who wrote it? Was that Sammy or somebody over there? It's not Sammy. We all want to think, well, yeah, Mark wrote it, but who was he influenced by? The Apostle Peter. And so Peter was up in Rome, and the Christians in Rome were being persecuted for their faith, for following this man Jesus. And so this question is being answered in the Gospel of Mark. Who is Jesus and why we should follow him? Why should we follow in the footsteps of Jesus? And Mark continually answers those two questions, and it's going to be the same thing today. To be a disciple of Jesus Christ. What does it really mean to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? Several of the songs today really are going to tie in almost like it was planned for this lesson. What it means to follow Jesus. What it means to be a follower of Jesus. What it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. And what a wonderful, powerful passage we have here in Mark chapter 5, beginning verse 21. Let's read it together, okay? When Jesus had again crossed over by boat. Now, I got to stop there. You remember where we were at, right? Jesus and his disciples the night before were out on the Sea of Galilee. A storm came up. I mean, seasoned fishermen were scared to death. And they asked Jesus, don't you care if we drown? And Jesus gets up and he calms the wind and the waves. And they're terrified now because they know who they're in the boat with. The boat immediately lands over on a shore. It's a cemetery. It's a graveyard. It's a place where this crazy maniac is there. And good and evil do mighty combat right there. And the disciples see this legion of demons get defeated, cast into the pigs, and they're destroyed into the sea. And now they're coming and they're landing on shore again. You almost wonder, what's going to happen next, right? You know, what is going on? Can you imagine being with Jesus and the disciples and all this is going on? And so that's where we're at this point. And so try to stay up with where we're at here in the heart and the mind of these disciples. Who is this Jesus? Remember last week at least I challenged the view that Jesus was this 1960s, 70s hippie that wears flowing gowns and sandals and has flowers in his hair and says, oh, lovey-dovey, soft, cushy stuff. I mean, we've got someone who is powerful and mighty and is doing battle against evil and having expectations of those who would claim to follow him. And those little footprints aren't leading to a hot tub, they're leading to a cross. They're leading to a cross. And I got to say, this message is radical for today's contemporary gospel, if you will. That's not what people want to hear. But this is the message that Jesus is giving. Because if anybody tells you that life is all just fun and games and sitting in a hot tub and drinking pina coladas, they're lying. They're flat telling you something that's not right. This is the reality of life. And yet, when Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And we're going to see that power. And my question to you before we even get into this lesson today is, have you experienced, do you experience, would you like to experience the power of Jesus Christ that we see here in the Gospel of Mark into your life? A couple do, huh? Everything else is going fine in life, huh? Everything's cool. Well, it's not always going to be cool. And your boat's going to be messed up. And it's going to be jostled. And you're going to find yourself terrified at one point in your life. And you'll come back to the story, I hope. And you'll remember that Jesus Christ has overcome this world. And that power that he infused in this woman that we're going to look at is not just for then. It's for now. Right here, right now. For those who have faith. Isn't it amazing that how many churches go on day after day, week after week, and they don't even need the power of Jesus. They're running on their own abilities, their own talents, their own strength, their own education, their own finances. And if you suck Jesus Christ, the power of Jesus out of the church, and it just goes on, then what are they really doing? And the same could be said for my life, your life, and everybody's life who claims to be a follower of Jesus Christ. So a lot of people have followed Jesus. Look at this story here. Oh, you've got to be asking yourself, if you're in this boat with Jesus and you're hitting the lake shore again and wondering, what is coming next? Well, first of all, as is the case, there's a large crowd had gathered around Jesus. While he was by the lake, one of the synagogue rulers, this is an uppity up, this is a person with a lot of dough, this is a person with a lot of power and influence. And this guy's name is Jairus. And Jairus comes running to Jesus, and he fell at his feet, and he pleaded earnestly with him. You getting the picture? This is a guy of power and strength and position in the community. And he's running and falling at the feet of Jesus Christ. Why? Because that storm has come. That time of terror has come. His daughter is sick. She's not just sick, she's about to die. And he pleaded earnestly with him. My little daughter is dying. Please come. Put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. I love these verses, these 5 words. So Jesus went with him. Pause that, because we've got something coming in between. We're going to come back to that next week. Because this large crowd followed and pressed around Jesus. They're bumping him. They're jostling. I like Luke. It says he was almost squished. He was so crowded. And in this crowd, a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. But instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and she touched his cloak. Why? She thought, if I just touch his clothes, I'll be healed. Next is Mark's favorite word, immediately. Immediately her bleeding stopped. And she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. And he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" And of course the disciples, being quick on their feet, told Jesus, "Well, there's people all around you, Lord. They're crowding against you. And yet you can ask, who touched me?" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. And he said to her, listen to this, church, listen to these words. Listen to these words of Jesus. Daughter. First word, daughter. Do you know this is the first and the only time that Jesus calls a woman daughter in the Gospels? Daughter. Your faith has healed you. Not a correct translation, by the way. The Greek really says, daughter, your faith has saved you. Isn't it? And he says, you've been freed from your suffering. Go in peace. You've been freed from your suffering. Listen to those words. Let them sink in. Imagine that you're that woman and you're there before Jesus. And he says, daughter, son, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Be freed from your suffering.